Yes.
The first winter storm of 2025 from Kansas to Missouri to Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. But further north than that, highly questionable, even to get some snow, but we'll see. Maybe into South Jersey. But we'll talk about all of this. We also have some winter weather going on up in the northern Rockies, and the lake effect snow machine has been really going overtime in parts of north central New York and southwestern New York, where they picked it up in feet. You got to move, snow lovers. And we'll talk about that too on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which of course you can support if you shop on Amazon. Use our referral link at the top of the chat board or on the descriptor to this podcast. It's easy. Just go use the link, shop, buy whatever it is you're going to buy on Amazon, and they throw us back a little bit of coin, and that helps us out. So we appreciate those of you who have done your shopping on the affiliate link on Amazon. So, wide swath tonight of winter storm warnings and winter storm watches and more to come. It's been a long time since we've seen a storm like this where it's sort of aligned west to east and kind of cutting the country right in the middle. And again, I always think about folks that want blocking, blocking, blocking. Well, you got so much blocking going on that it's suppressed, suppressed, suppressed. And it's going to be very hard to bring accumulating snows. I think they'll probably get into the southern half of New Jersey, but further north than that, it is a really, really tough sell.
I saw the short and midterm guidance models this afternoon, and it's unusual when you have the NAM, the GFS, the Canadian GEM model, and the European model all on the same page. But pretty much that is the story, that they all are bringing the snow. The northern fringe of the snow might make it up to, I don't know, Staten Island, maybe the Bronx border with Westchester, something like that. But if you're hoping for a major snowfall, and it made the national news tonight, Joe, talking about blizzard conditions, ice, heavy snow across from the Midwest to I know Major Garrett on CBS said East Coast. And, when he said that, I'm sure that a lot of people in New York and Boston and Providence, Rhode Island, and, in the Northeast are saying, really? For us too? No, not for us. At least that's how it looks right now. It looks like unless we have a significant change in the game plan, and of course, the 18Z GFS did bring the snow into New York and beyond
Right.
up through the Hudson Valley. But again, that's the intermediate prog, which really likes to vacillate back and forth, back and forth. But the primary weather computer models at 12Z all said basically the same thing. If you want snow, and if you want a considerable amount of it, you're going to have to go south, maybe down, as you said, to South Jersey or Washington, Baltimore.
Baltimore,
Um,
Philadelphia might should be able to get at least a few inches out of this,
there's
maybe a
one
little
place in
more.
West. There's one place in central West Virginia. I actually looked at it on an atlas or whatever. There's a couple of little teeny towns in the middle of West Virginia, and they may get like a foot of snow out of this. I don't know how it. It almost looks like Ike Gottes's or Sam Drucker probably supplies the food for those people who live in that area. But in any case, you get an idea. That's where you're going to have to go to really get a major snowfall. Otherwise, better luck next time. It would look like right now things can change. I had said on my 3:15 p.m. Facebook weather synopsis on both of my Facebook pages. I said it is possible that we might be brushed with some spotty light snow or flurries on Monday, but it could just as well miss us too. Stay tuned for further developments. And one of the people who responded to that was Neil Doherty, and he said, "Sure, sure, it can change, but looks like no precipitation for the next 2 weeks. For us snow lovers, that's pretty sad."
Hey, nobody said it can't be cold and dry,
Yep,
right?
right,
And
right.
again, I go back to what I said earlier. A lot of these, you snow weenies out there. You root for blocking. You say there's no other way you can get big snows without blocking. Well, again, be careful what you wish for because you got so much of it now that everything's getting pushed out underneath. You have a track of a storm track that is not going to our west, not going up the west side of the Appalachians. It's cutting straight across, and all it would need would be just a little bit of room to climb up along the coast. But unfortunately, for snow lovers anyway, you have northerly winds in the upper atmosphere and in the lower atmosphere from New England east. And that's not budging because the blocking low that's over Newfoundland ain't getting out of the way. So, yeah, it's really a tough sell. So, unless there's a big surprise, on my early call snow forecast match, which I posted for my subscribers on my subscription website, Patreon, I covered, so basically between 287 in Westchester County and 78 in New Jersey. And that I included Long Island. I was very tempted not to do that, but and also tempted to just use Route 78 as my boundary. But I thought, you know what? Let me just cover myself for a coating to at most an inch. And looking at some of the stuff, I really kind of think that that's going to be very difficult to pull off. Now, you head down South Jersey, as you said, down to Southeast PA, Southern Pennsylvania, Maryland. Uh, the snow weenies in Maryland are going to be should be pretty happy because they've been complaining for the longest time. Um, Going back the last few years. So, those areas, Virginia, um, you can even go a distance south of Washington, D.C., where there's probably going to be a decent amount of snow, Western Virginia and points west. But, there's no room. I mean, you literally have no room for this storm to turn northward. It's just not there. Welcome to everybody tonight on the chat board, and to those of you who are new to the show or you're watching in the background, welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 is our PM is our usual show times, and we're usually off on Friday and Saturday, but we're here tonight and we'll be here tomorrow night uh, with dealing with this particular storm system because we also have viewers that watch in South Jersey and Maryland and Delaware and Virginia and in other parts of the country. So we're going to keep everybody happy and give them some coverage here. So subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And if you like tonight's show, by all means, hit the like button because we love when people hit the like button. So we got a lot, Joe, a lot of winter storm warnings up. Just about much of Kansas, southern Nebraska, all of Missouri except the extreme south. There are also a few counties on the southern edge of the winter storm warnings in Missouri that have ice storm warnings up. Winter storm warnings for western Illinois. It also, we're talking Kansas City, Topeka, St. Louis, all in that. Winter storm watches for the rest of central and southern Illinois, central and southern Indiana, Kentucky, southern Ohio. Those will probably go to warnings. We have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings up right now in West Virginia into western Pennsylvania. That's because of the upper trough that's impacting that and the lake effect stuff that's coming off. That's been moving southward, and that's going to continue overnight. Lake effect snow warnings, Northwest PA, I can't see if that's the same. What about Northeast Ohio? Also in Northeast Ohio, including Cleveland, by the way, in a lake effect snow warning, extending into Southwest New York, and then in North Central New York, which has been getting hit particularly hard with heavy snowfall. Also still under um, lake effect snow warnings. And also, we have winter weather advisories extending up through Nebraska and South Dakota, going back into Montana, where they become winter storm warnings, and then back to advisories for northern Idaho, northern Washington state, down the Cascades. And for a few counties in California, we have winter weather advisories in the Sierra Nevadas, as well as a couple of counties with winter storm warnings in effect. So as Adam Lowe is on the chat board tonight, just basically wiping off the entire winter. Let's roll along here and see what is going on the satellite loop, and you can see the upper trough in the northeast. Uh, there was some squally weather and some snow showers, and even I noticed that there were even a couple of special marine warnings that popped up in Chesapeake Bay late this afternoon from this upper trough that moved through southern New Jersey, and a lot of this, some of the areas here in southern Pennsylvania, um, uh, eastern Maryland, to Delaware and southern New Jersey. Got a dusting of snow, a coating on the ground in a few places, maybe even a little bit more in some. That is moving out, and we're left with another night of winds picking up, and it's going to be windy at least into the first part of Saturday.
And on the chat board, I didn't actually I didn't see her on the chat board tonight. I'm just going to make a quick check here. I want to make sure if she's on or not. She might actually be making all kinds of storm preparations. I'm referring to our own Miss Spallerite. And on my Facebook page, I had posted yesterday, Joe, from the folks at WPC, key messages for this winter storm for January 4th through the 6th, showing at least where the moderate winter impacts would be in terms of snow and ice. And she wrote, I'm still extremely worried. This again is Miss Ballerite now. I'm extremely worried about ice accumulations here in the South Kansas City metro area, potential loss of electricity. Then 6 inches or more of snow, followed by bitter cold temperatures throughout next week. Temperatures will barely be into the teens. Wind chills will be too near or below zero during the day, and then in capital letters, ugh. And I would certainly agree with that. That does not sound very very. And you read something like that, and then you have to wonder sometimes about people who jump up and down and are happy that there's going to be a major storm system that's going to bring a lot of snow or a lot of cold weather or whatever. You have to say to yourself, why? What is the big concern? Now, you and I started out in this business, and 40 years ago, we would probably be doing high fives ourselves, but we have mellowed over the many, many years, ending up, with families and being concerned about property damage and also problems with other family members with such extreme weather. And this does not look like a very pretty picture for those folks who live, again, in the path of this storm in the middle of the country and points east. It's not. And meanwhile, while all this is happening, if the forecasts maintain the kind of scenario or script that I was looking at this afternoon, I mean, here in the tri-state New York area, aside from maybe a couple of flurries or snow showers on Monday, temperatures will be hovering during the day at around 30. Nighttime lows will probably be down in the 20s and teens. There will be some gusty winds next week. In fact, the wind machine, I mentioned this a couple of days ago, we had gusty, strong winds yesterday. They kind of calmed off today. They're going to get revved up again tomorrow. They're going to continue at least a brisk to blustery state through much of next week. So it's not going to be so much the cold, but that wind is just going to cut through you like a knife. But at least we don't have to shovel wind, or we don't have to shovel clouds, which is what we're going to be seeing here in the northeastern states or here in the New York metropolitan area. So, Miss Spallerite, if you're watching, I feel for you, and I'm sure a lot of people feel for you, and hope that you don't lose electricity, and hope that you're able to maintain some sanity with the extreme cold, the strong gusty wind chills, the 6 or more inches of snow that you may see, because it's going to be rough. The first real major winter storm of the season, and the first real major winter storm to affect such a broad swath of the country in quite a long time. And that's coming late this weekend and into the early part of next week.
Uh, that energy, by the way, is coming into the west now, and you can see on the satellite loop the rotation that's off the coast of Oregon. So some of that energy is now breaking away and moving into Idaho and Montana, which is where you see those other winter storm warnings. Then it comes over the top of the ridge and starts to drive southward. In fact, you can see clouds streaming into northern Kansas and Missouri now. This is running ahead of the main system, but it's part of the setup. Meanwhile, it's mainly clear across the southeast, and it is cold here. It's been very windy this afternoon. We've had gusts of 40 miles an hour at times here in North Georgia, and temperatures. What was the last? Uh, 32 right now. 32 here, heading down into the 20s. So very cold here in the southeast behind this trough. And then when this weather system plays through, it's going to turn even colder here for early next week and beyond. It could be setting up for a little bit of snow mid and late week, which we'll talk about for parts of the south in just a bit. But radars tonight. A little busy here in the Northeast with the lake effect stuff along I-90 from Syracuse running east to just north of Albany. A lot of snow falling at the moment in southwestern New York, including Buffalo. So they're getting some streamers coming in now in Buffalo. Northwest PA, some of those snow showers are making it further west. We've got some action going on in West Virginia. Also in northeast Ohio, including Cleveland, getting some lake effect snows. Western Michigan, we don't want to leave the folks in Michigan out because they're getting lake effect there. And also on the Upper Peninsula coming off Lake Superior. So, really, a lot of widespread activity. And the snow showers that were in southern New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware, those are now moving offshore as a trough moves on out to the east. And in the west, we see precipitation into Washington state, crossing over into Idaho and Montana. This is mostly snow in western and eastern Washington, northern Idaho, and into Montana. And then you start to see some precipitation aloft beginning to develop in Nebraska and in southwest Iowa and in northern Missouri, and that's only going to get even busier. The Storm Prediction Center, by the way, is setting up for some severe weather Sunday, and that's going to be for East Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and into Arkansas. We got the hint yesterday on their long range where they had an implied slight risk in their long range forecast, and sure enough, it's there tonight, and it's also been expanded just a little bit with general thunderstorms pushing up as far north as southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and southern Missouri. So, again, this is all because of that developing low that is moving on to the east. Let's look at what WPC has to say, and this carries us to Monday night. Now, usually on the first forecast period that appears, when it gets into your area, the probabilities are not always on the high side because this is covering 72 hours. But you can see the east-west swath of the salmon color and the red colors, because that's 80% or higher probability for at least two, running from Kansas straight eastward to Delaware and just touching southern New Jersey. The 50%, excuse me, the 50% line is southern Monmouth County to just north of Trenton. Okay, so I think you're probably going to see those percentages go up a bit. But further north than that, you're not looking at big numbers here at all. You're talking actually some low numbers. We're only talking, at least from WPC standpoint, only a 5 to maybe 10% chance that there could be 2 inches, say, in North Jersey and for Long Island. So again, it's that That whole blocking setup is just not right. And as far as specific accumulations that are being forecast, rather large swath of 8 to 12 inches from central and eastern Kansas. So we're talking Topeka, Kansas City, all in there. Um, Lincoln, Nebraska is just like kind of on the edge of the 6 inch line. Then you go into Missouri. They're forecasting 8 in St. Louis and a potential for 10 or 11 when you get up a little bit further to the north, east, west across Missouri into Illinois, central and southern Illinois, into Indiana, Indianapolis, looking at the potential here for about 8. These are Weather Service numbers with the digital forecast. Uh, 6 to 10 across the southern half of Ohio, including Columbus, northern Kentucky, Louisville, Frankfort, Cincinnati's on Ohio, technically in Ohio, although it's got 3 states uh, surrounding it. But there you go. Uh,
Pittsburgh's not going to do badly, and it's unusual when Pittsburgh gets a significant snow. Synoptically speaking, this is about the only way Pittsburgh gets a major snowfall of, let's say, 8, 10, 12 inches, and this is what they're looking at for southwestern Pennsylvania.
yes, you see the dark pink is up to 1 to 2 feet. And that's because some of that is tonight, where you see that in the mountains of West Virginia. Continuing further to the east, amounts 8 inches being forecast for Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, 8 inches being forecast by the Weather Service in southern New Jersey. I kind of think that might be just a little bit too high, but based on what we were looking at, but these are the numbers they put out: 6 in Philadelphia, 4 for Trenton, then they've got a 2 for, I don't know if that 2 is Kennedy Airport or, probably close to it. Ones and twos in northern New Jersey and New York City. Yeah, that's Joe. That's going to be tough. I'm not saying it can't happen. That this could be correct, but I'm really thinking here that it's going to be very difficult to push the snow much further north than the accumulating snow, much further north than, say, central Jersey.
You heard the bell. We're up to 128 likes
Yes, yes.
and rising. So not bad considering this was a last minute thing to do a Friday night show. But we know we have a lot of people out there. 305 on my screen right now watching, and a lot of people who are into this. Even though many of you who are watching are not going to see now that 1 or 2 inch total for parts of Long Island, and New York City. As I pointed out yesterday, if you want to look at this from the standpoint of what the QPF is being grinded out by these models, that's one thing. But again, keep in mind that the low levels of the atmosphere are going to be very dry, and so a lot of what's going to fall is going to end up evaporating before reaching the ground. So that being the case, yeah, it may look like parts of Long Island, New York City may pick up upwards to an inch or two, but in the end, as the snow falls, a lot of that is going to be lost to that shallow layer of dry, cold air at the surface. And so we're going to see probably a lot of virga. I'm sure, Joe, that on Monday we're going to see that. People are going to be looking at the radar saying, "Oh, look, New York City, it's snowing already in New York and Long Island." Yeah, it's snowing, but it's not going to be reaching the ground. Again, of that dry air. Steve Lapointe says snow weenies are praying the Lapointe curse.
Yes. So snow's going to extend fairly far south into Virginia. I mean, it does tail off once you get down to Richmond. It's like an inch or two, and further south, it's even less than that. But the same holds for the southern half of Kentucky and southern parts of Missouri. Uh, just want to check the ice forecast because that is going to be an issue in the central in Kansas and Missouri and so on. before it changes over to snow. And you're looking at significant ice accretion here. Kansas City, not so much. Further north, we're only talking maybe a tenth of an inch or less of ice accretion, which is at least, that's not terrible. But you get down south of Topeka, there's an east-west band here that's going to run there from there south of St. Louis into southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and northern Kentucky, where we're talking about ice accretion of up to a half an inch. That's going to be a problem.
Yeah, no question. If you're going to have ice and snow, it's preferable to have the snow first and then have the ice on top, like a crust, if you will, or a layering. The last thing you want is to have the ice first on the sidewalks, on the streets, and then cover it up with snow, and then you're unaware of that. So even if you, for example, if you're out there shoveling, all you have to do is just step on a patch of ice that's underneath that snow. Bam, you're down on the floor. Or if you're driving, you're suddenly finding yourself sliding off the road. That's not good. And indeed, that's going to make, as Miss Spallerite was mentioning in her post to me on Facebook, that's the one thing she really is dreading is having the ice first and then come the snow, and it's going to be terrible. No, I
Yeah.
mean, there's no way that you can cut or slice or dice this. It's just going to be a terrible or a horrible situation across the nation's midsection.
David Fuller just hit the tip jar. Thank you, David. You want 7 days of 300 plus. Well, it'd be nice. I know you talk about the audience size. Thank you. Appreciate the thanks and hoping for some snow there in Monmouth County on Monday. Well, you may get some, but I wouldn't, might be able to push it with a broom more than anything else. Also, want to point out that in Virginia, there could be some ice accretion there of up to maybe a quarter of an inch, extending down to the North Carolina state line, southern Kentucky, north central and northeastern Tennessee. So around Nashville, a little bit of freezing rain there in Knoxville, which is actually not that far away from me. So just giving you the heads up in the southern Appalachians, and there's also going to be in the western Carolina mountains, probably a few inches of snow on top of that. So a storm here that is covering a lot of miles, and a lot of folks are going to be impacted by this when it's all said and done. And hopefully it doesn't get too crazy. But there's the whole east-west part of the ice, and I'll give you the snow map again one more time, and you can see the extent of it. Very, very, it's narrow, but it just kind of covers a whole bunch of states from west to east. WPC's liquid precip amounts. Now they actually, they had no precip from northern New Jersey, north and east yesterday. So now they've got, zero point zero 0.01 to 0.10. Thank you very much. And the quarter of an inch line is in central New Jersey, a half inch in southern New Jersey. And by the way, the snow ratios here are probably going to be, they may not, instead of being 10 to 1, they may be more like 12 to 1, or in some places 14 or even 15 to 1 because of the cold air that's around. And you can see all of the melted precip liquid amounts of an inch and a half or more. Southern Illinois, northern Kentucky into West Virginia, southeastern Missouri. Everybody else is pretty much sitting on 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And then, of course, you've got where it's going to be rain and thunderstorms. You're talking about half an inch to an inch or maybe more in the Gulf states and in the deep south as the cold front swings underneath the low center. In the northwest, you go into the Rockies, you're looking at a quarter to a half an inch in bitter cold air. Same goes in northern Idaho and the Pacific Northwest. We're looking at up to some areas along the coast about an inch and a half. Again, these are 7-day precip amounts. So some of this stuff may be covering a couple of weather systems, but the vast majority of it in the east anyway is from the system that we're looking at for tomorrow. So I'm just going to bring up the upper air here to just sort of go over what we're dealing with. And here we go with 500 millibars. Again, take a look at what's over in eastern Canada. You've got this really big vortex sitting right there. I mean, it's just been there for days now, and days since the new year, and because that New Year's Day storm is what made that vortex, and it's going to be there for quite a bit longer. And even when it pulls out, it's going to wind up getting replaced by another one. So in the meantime, at least right now, what we're seeing, there's a trough that's moving off the coast tonight. It's going to re-energize that block, and there's another short wave way up there. So we roll this along over the coming days. You can go through the weekend. You're still You need the block. You would need this to pull out. Now, that is a really vigorous short. You look at this and you think, if the block were to pull out and that short wave, the cutoff low that's in Kansas, which is very, very vigorous, if that were to hold together, yeah, there would probably be significant snows up the seaboard, reaching up into New England. But because the block does not get out of the way, you notice that this thing just kind of does a bit of a fade here. It's still fairly vigorous there's a cutoff low there sitting in southern West Virginia Monday evening. And then it just kind of flattens out as it goes straight to the east. It's not lifting up northward. It's sliding eastward because of the blocking low between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland is forcing it to go out underneath. And it's still there. We're talking next Wednesday. It's still there. Here comes another arm of energy that swings around. Again, you've got northerly winds in New England and in Canada just kind of forcing anything that even tries to come out in the southern stream to go out underneath us. And then yet another deep trough that follows late next week. And the same issue here. It's a very unusual setup that continues. Now I'm up to January 15th and it's still there. Again, more energy diving down from the north. It just does not want to get out of the way. So the bottom line here is it's going to be cold and it's going to stay cold, but there's not going to be much room for anything to happen. As long as you have this upper low, as sprawling as it is, it's just not. There's just not going to be any room.
Absolutely agree, Joe. And in fact, Chuck Cardillo on the chat board asking you and I, with that strong north-northwest flow, how could that suppress the storm further south than what the models are currently forecasting? Chuck, if you were asking me this question even yesterday or a few days ago, I would say, yeah, certainly a possibility. But now we're inside of 72 or at most 84 hours of the event. And when you get this close now, and as I said at the start of the show, a lot of the models are all on the same page. It's going to be pretty difficult. There may be some slight vacillations in the track of this storm, maybe by about 50 or 75 miles north or south. But generally speaking, what we're looking at right now is going to be the story, or the game, if you will, for this system as we move into the early part of next week on into Monday. So again, as I've always said, when you get within 3 or 3.5 days of the event, that's when everything suddenly becomes far more accurate than what you had to work with, let's say 5 or 6 days ago, when the models were using their own algorithms and guessing numerically what will be the story when you get to the actual event. Now, with all of that extra data going into the data set for the computation and the modeling, it's pretty well a fact that the path that we're seeing right now for this storm pretty well is going to be what's going to happen from now right on into the start of next week. David Scott on the chat board asking, what is my forecast for Baltimore and Pittsburgh tomorrow and in the afternoon and evening for the NFL games? This is, I believe, the NFL season officially comes to an end this weekend before the playoffs begin. Well, if you're in Baltimore, excuse me? Thank God.
The Giants and Jets, thank God.
God, yeah, let's not get into that. Baltimore is going to be playing the Cleveland Browns. The game is at 4:30. Should be sunny, clear, no weather problems there. Temperature right around freezing, 32 degrees. In Pittsburgh, where again, I mentioned a few moments ago, for Sunday, Monday, they're going to get clobbered with a lot of snow. But on Saturday, tomorrow, for their game against the Bengals, I think that's at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, it should be cloudy and the temperature at game time 20 to 25. This, of course, does not take into account the fact that at both places, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they're going to have a significant wind. So if it's going to be like 32 in Baltimore, probably will feel a lot more like 20 or 22 with the wind factored in. Pittsburgh, around 20 to 25, probably going to feel more like 10 to 15. Good luck to anyone who is going to be out and about physically at that game, sitting in the stands. And of course, Joe, you're going to see the usual morons in this type of weather pattern, both in Baltimore and Pittsburgh tomorrow, probably standing out there, not wearing any shirts and painting their chests. You know, either either Ravens or Steelers, and cheering their team on with the temperatures so very very cold. But you always see those dum dums doing stuff like that in situations like this. So there you go, David. That's your forecast for the games tomorrow. At least my outlook for tomorrow's last two games of the season.
Anthony was asking about the block and all. I just want there's one thing that I want to just emphasize here. There's a window where the block pulls out enough, and I'm taking it here. This is Monday morning, okay? The northwest winds pull up a little more up into New England, and you still have this vigorous upper low. But what happens is that on the western side of the upper low, so there is the west. There, let me clear the board here. There you go. So here's the upper low that's out near Newfoundland. It's not quite at 50 and 50, but it's the idea. But back in through here to the west in Quebec is another shortwave that's getting ready to come down. So just as that upper low kind of relaxes Sunday and Sunday night, that you can see how that little arm there that's up in Quebec over into Maine starts to swing around, and that takes that upper low, which again stays pretty vigorous into Monday morning, even into Monday afternoon, and then just starts to squash it. And that's really the problem. The problem is that second arm that's sort of coming back from the upper low that is sitting over Newfoundland. So going forward, just want to take a look here as we move. We get this thing. Once that's done, there's energy that drops.
I should point out, Joe. Our friend Mr. Tolerus is on the chat board tonight. He just posted something about the problem with the GFS solution, or the 12Z and the 18Z at the shortwave is closed at 500 as it moves through West Virginia. Joe C. posts the graphic at 500 millibar with the vorticity field and compared to the euro.
Okay, now we have a new producer. So all right. So he wants the 18Z. Okay, so there it is. This is 18Z Monday. And there's your trough on the GFS. So now let's go over to the euro. And yeah, I mean, it's even more squashed. Look at that. I mean, it really is just getting just absolutely flattened. And look what's happening in the east. Look from Maine, Joe. Look at this, an upper low that's sitting near Montreal, and the whole trough just, it's almost like a sledgehammer comes down and just absolutely squashes that thing as it goes out to the east. And you can't do anything with this. Not, yeah, okay, in Virginia and West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, maybe southern New Jersey, fine. But points north of there, you can't do it. It needs to be turning and lifting up, and there's no room. So there's another mess.
See, there's your analogy. You said it's like a sledgehammer squashing that. To me, when I see things like this happen, I think of the late great professional wrestler Gorilla Monsoon, 401 pounds, and his finishing move was to bounce off the ropes. Joe, he was 400 pounds. He would go at least 5 or 6 feet up in the air and come crashing down on his opponent and flattening his opponent. He called that the Manchurian splash. Well, this is the meteorological version of the gorilla monsoon Manchurian splash. As you said, it's like a sledgehammer. It's literally flattening that thing. So if you're hoping for any kind of a change in this, again, we're within 72 hours of the event or whatever. Ain't happening. It ain't happening. And again, some of the models are winding that upper low up even more so than others. It really is a pretty interesting setup that's we're looking at for the next 2 or 3 days.
And going forward into next week, as more troughing swings around that block, of course, that's going to keep things cold in the east, down into the southeast and into Florida. There's another trough that's moving into the Dakotas. If you look in the southwest, there's an upper low. That upper low is going to get locked up there. So now you've got this northern energy that's coming down and swinging into the eastern part of the United States. So, we had the models trying to make a low in the western Gulf of Mexico uh, for late next week. And while it might try to still do that, some moisture may start to come in. Maybe it streams up northward into parts of the southeast. But I mean, this is to me doesn't look all that impressive one way or another. And then you're just going to get the whole thing to go goodbye out to the east. And looking long range, it's just cold fronts and cold air. That's all it is. Cold fronts and cold air. I mean, here's an interesting thing though. Just for laughs. I mean, this is on January 16th, Joe, 300 hours. There's what looks like a really solid diving glow coming down from Minnesota into Wisconsin and into southern Michigan. So you think that maybe it could keep going southeast and maybe do something when it moves off the mid-Atlantic coast. But no, you still have the blocking low sitting near Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and the whole thing just basically falls apart, and a storm forms way out to the east that takes it over and then runs up back into the block again. It's just
Yep.
an it's just an endless parade of all this cold air. I mean, it's really amazing that you're going to have all this cold air for weeks, and you're still pulling teeth. You're basically pulling teeth um, with, I don't know, with your hands trying to pull the teeth out. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, granted, it's probably not going to look exactly like this, but if you're going to still be holding on to this blocky pattern for the next couple of weeks, it's just going to be very difficult to pull off a snowstorm. Yeah, you get something like this that comes across the middle, but you know, further north, unlikely. Maybe you get a chance further south if you get something in the Gulf that pops up, a little wave with some moisture that moves along. But other than that, uh, it's um, it's not good for snow lovers going forward. It's not horrible, but it's not good.
If it's not one thing, it's another. And over all these past few winters, we've had uh, too mild a weather pattern. The storms that we did have were more rain than snow. And now here we are with all the cold air that you want. But again, as you pointed out the onset of the program tonight, Joe, it's just a little bit too much. And with
Yeah,
that in talk, it's not working if you are here in the Northeast.
I was thinking back to remember the one storm last winter in mid-February that brought a sizable amount of snow to the I-95 corridor. Okay, and if you remember that, it shifted southward in the within when we were like inside 36 hours of the of the storm beginning. The model shifted completely, significantly southward. It was showing all this 2 feet of snow in Boston, and they hardly saw anything there, and everything just at the very last minute just shifted southward. You're gonna I remember that we all were very amazed by that, because you rarely see a shift that large in a when you're inside 36 hours. So you're going to have to, let's just say that if you're rooting, if you're not in that zone in the mid-Atlantic, if you're further north. If you're rooting for this thing to come further north, you're going to have a similar miracle occur in the models over the next 2 days. And thinking this time it ain't going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either. This is a pattern which I think is fairly well set. Yeah, there may be some slight vacillations again, maybe 50 miles or so north or south of what we're looking at right now. That could make a somebody brought this up on the chat board the other night. He remembered one storm where Staten Island got like 3 to 4 inches and the Bronx got hardly anything. This is that kind of a system. There's going to be a very sharp cutoff line somewhere, and what can I say? If you where's the cutoff going to be? For me, here in the lower Hudson Valley, I'm not expecting more than a few snow showers at worst. I don't think we're going to see very much of anything. And if you live in Orange County, Ulster County, Dutchess County, you may not see a flake out of this. Again, this is all going to be to the south. So if you're a snow lover, that's where you're going to have to go is south to see your impending snowstorm.
Closing
Thank
in
you,
on.
Party, by the way, for hitting Super Chat tonight.
Oh, thank you, Brent. Um, we're closing in on 200 likes. We only need six. Oh, now we only need six more. Yeah,
Yes.
oh yeah. By the way, I did see some snow here in North Georgia today. We had some flurries this morning. I was at the dog park, and a little white thing flew right in front of my face. I said, "Ooh, a snow flurry!" And then my friends, we were standing around, and there were like two or three more of those little white things flew by. It was like, "Oh, more snow flurries." So, we did see some today, technically. Didn't see much more than that, but that's what it was. Um, I'm at 202 if you want to ring the bell again.
Yes, I'm seeing it now too. In fact, I'm up to 204. So, yes, there you go. Thank you for bringing us to over 200 likes tonight. And we have about 303 people watching right now. Again, not bad for a last minute scheduling of tonight's show. Now, tomorrow, we're on tomorrow night, I guess. And tomorrow night, the show begins a little earlier at 7
7
o'clock.
o'clock tomorrow night will be the start time. So so everybody mark that down. 7 o'clock tomorrow, not 7:35.
So if it
7 o'clock.
wasn't hurting you or bothering you, all of you snow lovers, about what we've said tonight about the impending event coming up, you can come back if you're gluttons for punishment and listen to us tomorrow talk about, again, this massive swath of snow, which the lion's share of which looks like it's going to miss most of the immediate tri state area.
On the other hand, if you're in Philadelphia, Washington D.C., Baltimore, um, points south and west of there, if you're a snow lover, you may hit a bit of a jackpot. So we'll fill you in on what's going to happen. And David Fuller just hit the tip jar again. He had a dusting tonight on his car from that stuff that moved through across the southern half of New Jersey. Yeah, count those flakes; they all count. So maybe add a tenth of an inch to your seasonal snow total there, Mr. Fuller. All right, and thanks for hitting the super chat. All right, so we're going to be back. Remember, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Sunday is our regular time. Oh, DT says 7 p.m. is a problem for me because the cuts into my time I spend the evening looking at dirty pictures. Oh, very attractive, Dave. Really, you know, you're known as a Prince Charming to begin with. That ought to add to your reputation. Whether it's a good ad or a bad ad, I'll leave that up to everybody else to decide. All right, we will. Oh yeah. Oh, by the way, you know who was on earlier on the chat board? I meant to mention this. PP Face.
Who?
PP Face.
Oh,
PP Face hasn't been on for quite a while, but PP Face was on the chat board tonight.
I thought you were going to mention. I thought you were going to mention Bogies Bees, but he was on last night.
He was Bogies Bees was last night. I don't know, Brandon, if there's well, there better not be a poo-poo face. Okay. Well, pee-pee face is just as bad enough. All right, so everybody.
Maybe tomorrow night we'll have Joe Finsterblau.
Yes. We'll see everybody tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Bye bye.